In the 1950s, and for several consecutive years, Britain's biggest, best-loved and highest-paid film actor was Kenneth More. He was in hugely popular films like Genevieve, Doctor in the House and Reach for the Sky. More charmed cinema-goers with his irresistible exuberance and a lovely comic touch that came combined with solid dependability. At the height of his popularity, life seemed to be a whirl of show business premieres and parties with famous faces. But an affair, and then marriage, to the actress Angela Douglas, who was 26 years younger than Moore, damaged his public image and left him feeling abandoned by his friends and the film community. After a few dry years, he turned to television, and a role in the BBC's The Forsyte Saga was, to Moore's surprise, a huge international hit and saw his fortunes and his popularity restored. There was a quality about Kenneth More that seemed to embody that much-used phrase, best of British. He admitted he was never the best-looking star or even the best actor around. But as is clear from this exchange with Michael Flanders, the way he appealed to an audience was something he had considered very carefully.
In the late 40s, you had to look like Stuart Granger to really succeed in the romantic roles. You had to be tall and dark and thin, you know what I mean? What I call cigar shapes. There are two kinds of actors. There's a cigar shape and there's the square shape. I don't mean square emotionally, mentally. I mean square shape. Now, I'm a box, I'm a square. You know, I'm not one of those. I'm not a Rex Harrison. Now, therefore, I never got the romantic roles. Now, I had two assets to fall back on, comedy and emotion. Now, women either want to be knocked off their feet by an actor, they want to be pulled into bed by a romantic actor, or they want to take that actor to bed themselves and cuddle him, you know. That's what I call the small boy line. Now, I knew that I stood much more chance in that direction than the cigar-shaped direction, so I went for that.
Moore came into acting totally by chance. In the 1930s, he found himself a job at the Windmill Theatre in London's Soho, where famously girls would pose completely still and in the nude. Moore fell in love with the place and would always look back on it with affection.
I started my career on that stage, in that theatre, and I spent 2 years of my life there. First as a stagehand, then as an actor in my own right. Until the theatre closed, I kept in close touch with the Windmill. Even now, after all these years, I still have a feeling for the spirit of the place. A British institution, or just another tatty little corner of Soho. Whatever it was, it has a great story. It has about it the stuff of life.
It wasn't a desire to tread the boards that drew Moore to the Windmill. He was simply after a job, as he explained here to Michael Parkinson.
And eventually one day, with £100 in my pocket, which my kind mother gave me, I was walking along Shaftesbury Avenue, and I saw the Windmill Theatre. And I remembered the name. I saw the name of the general manager, Vivian Van Dam. And I remember a name that had called on my father. A man called Van Dam had called on my father, either to interest him in some business deal or other, which didn't come off. So I went to see him, and I said, "Can I have a job, please?" And he said, "Are you Bertie Moore's son?" I said, "Yes, I am. You can start on Monday." I said, "How much?" He said, £2.10 a week. What do you want to do? I said, "Anything." He said, "You'll start by shifting scenery, but then we'll put you on to the electrics, management, theatre manage." Asked me to become an actor because that is death and destruction. So I started in the Windmill. I said, "What's my first job?" He said, "Getting the nudes off the stage." So I said, "What? Getting the what? Do you have new ladies here?" "Oh, yes," he said, "we have new..." And I was only 20, you know. I thought, my Joe, they pay you for this? My first job was to rush on the stage in the blackout with a pilot light and hand the girls their dressing gowns and get them off the stage, because I was totally embarrassed, absolutely blush scarlet. And I never knew I was so popular. All my school friends used to call on me twice a week, say, "Oh, they pay you for this job? Oh, Kenny, how wonderful." Oh, it was just marvelous.
You in fact started your stage career there as such, didn't you? Because
Yes,
you
I
actually,
did.
how do you get to appear at the Windmill?
Well, I was a stagehand, then I was an electrician, and we had comedians who used to always borrow one or two stagehands to assist in the jokes and the gags, you know. And one night they asked me if I'd be a policeman. And all I had to do was to open the door and say, is that your car outside, sir? To Ken Douglas, who is a comedian. That was all I had to do. Now, on the stage, you must be well aware that you don't put real glass in window frames, you just have window frames. But there's supposed to be glass there, the illusion that there's glass there, but there isn't any glass. So I thought, why should I go to the door if I can stick my head through the window? I forgot that it's supposed to be glass there, so I just stuck my head with a policeman's helmet through and said, there's your car outside, sir. It brought the house down. So Van Damme came around and said, keep that in, that's a wonderful joke. And I tasted laughter, I tasted the smell of the audience, and I went to him one day and I said, I'm sorry, sir, I want to become an actor, will you forgive me? And he said yes, and he helped me.
After 3 years acting, Moore joined the Navy at the beginning of World War II, and he found to his surprise that his theatre experience did actually help him.
I was in a ship, HMS Aurora, which was in every possible action because we had a very gallant captain, and where he went, we had to go with him. I mean, we had no say in it. So it was tough in that respect. But I learned an awful lot from the war. I know I was a better actor after the war than I was before. I was given a very special job in my ship, and that was the action commentator, the action broadcaster. Whenever the ship went to action, I was given a microphone, and I had to stand on the back of the bridge and describe exactly what was happening. If there were torpedo bombers coming on the port side, I had to tell the crew, because there's nothing worse than being in the engine room in a ship in action, and you're hearing all these explosions going on, you don't know what's going on. So I found my level, and I found the stage helped me there, and it didn't allow me to be nervous, because if my voice was nervous, then the whole ship was going to be nervous, below decks anyway. So it kept me steady, and I was always frightened like everybody else, but I tried not to show it. So I found my level through the theatre, and I did that damn well.
When the war ended, you were 32, and you really had to start all over again.
I was very fortunate. I was put on to a man called Harry Dubins, who started an agency to represent actors from the front, from the war. He wouldn't touch anybody else. And I went very quickly into a little play called The Crimson Harvest at the Gateway Theatre, which was a terrible melodrama. I had a fairly showy little part. And on the very first night, Michael Barry, who was to become such an influence later in television in this country, saw me, liked my performance, and took me up to the Alexander Palace to put me on a short contract to play in plays up there. So I managed to get on my feet fairly quickly after the war.
Moore had plenty of success on the stage, particularly in Terence Rattigan's The Deep Blue Sea. He'd hoped that his appearance in Scott of the Antarctic would trigger an equally successful film career. It didn't. But it did lead to what became his big movie break.
Well, I did the test I did for Scott. I had to test because being a sort of virtually unknown actor, you had to do tests. Well, the man who did my test was not the director of the film. That was Charlie Friend. But the man who did the test was another staff director at Ealing called Henry Cornelius. Now, we got... the years go by, and I'm playing at the Duchess Theatre in the Deep Blue Sea, having made an enormous success, I must admit. And one night, this rather strange-looking man with thick glasses came into my room, and I was waiting for the praise. He didn't come. And I said, have you been out front? He said, no. What's on here? I said, oh, my God, you know. So he said, I have something under my arm which I'd like you to read. And I said, but why me? If you haven't been out front, you don't know about the Deep Blue Sea. He said, no. He said, I happened to do that test of you for Scott of the Antarctic, which you didn't do very well, he said, but I saw a couple of qualities in that test which I think would suit this character, Ambrose Claverhouse, in a film called Genevieve, which I'm just about to start. I'd like you to read the script, take it home, and if you want to play the part, it's yours.
Genevieve. That was the big break and would lead to many, many more roles. Today it's considered a much-loved comedy classic, but that wasn't the case then, as he would tell Tony Bilbo in 1980.
I'm going to do rather a jump in time to one of your...
You jump in time, you do anything you want, Tony, anything you want.
to one of your most successful films, Genevieve. I was interested to see from your book that, in fact, the critics weren't all that pleased with them, and nor were the studio executives.
In fact, when they showed it to John Davis of the Rank Empire and all their bigwigs in rank, they said, no, we must never show this, it's terrible, it's a ghastly mistake. But it proved, the public took it to its heart and became almost endurable, you know. wonderful film.
Yes. Well, I think we ought to see a clip from it now. And for anybody who doesn't remember it, because it is back to 1953, it's about a car rally, a race to Brighton in vintage cars, and you are Ambrose with Kay Kendall.
Yes, the lovely Kay.
Go on, get out of it! Look, there's a shortcut up there. We get round him. We're stuck. You'll have to get out and push.
Me? What about my stockings?
Oh, never mind those. I'll buy you a dozen pairs. Now go on, Rosalind. Get out. Push.
Oh. Oh.
No, not like that. Get your shoulder into it. There she comes. There she comes. Oh. Oh. Well done, Olga. Well done. Let's get going.
Let's get going.
Come on, hurry up. Let's get going.
Oh.
Get out of it. Come on.
I'm
Come
sorry.
on, get in.
Look at my clothes. Oh. Oh, I can't bear anymore. Just look at me. I'm absolutely ruined.
Ah, pipe down. You're all right.
I want to go home.
That's amazing how
Wasn't it
well...
impossible? Ambrose Cleverhouse is absolutely an outrageous man.
It's amazing how well that film stands the test of time.
Yes, it does,
isn't
it does, it's true.
I suppose a real turning point in your career as a film star was Reach for the Sky, the film about Douglas Bader. Yes. There again, I was interested to discover that both Alexander Korda and Laurence Olivier, no less, thought you were absolutely mad to do it.
Well, I think that's why, because David Lean had a film in mind for me called The Wind Cannot Read in India. And it was a wonderful script, and it would have made a wonderful film, and working with the great David Lean is something. And I turned it down because I didn't think the public would accept me in a serious role after Cleverhouse, in what you just seen, and in The Doctor in the House. So I turned it down, and he never forgave me. And Larry Olivier and Korda both said, you're going to play a man with no legs when you could play with David Lean. It's absolutely absurd. But that's the reason.
How did you actually get inside the part of Bader?
Well, I met Douglas. I played a round of golf with him, and that's the way to learn about a man, you know, to play golf with him at Gleneagles, and met him once or twice for dinner with Ronnie Squire, my old friend. And he hated the film people. He said, I like you, Ken, you're all right, you can do it, but the rest of them can't, they're awful. But I managed to sort of, I took to his character, I warmed towards him. And I saw what he stood for, because he's really a Rudyard Kipling fellow, you know. There are not many men like Douglas Bader.
But it seems to me it's much, much more than simply learning how to play the part of a man
well,
with
you've got to learn how to
legs.
walk with no legs. I mean, I went to the limb centre in Putney, and they made some artificial legs to go around my own. And I remember Danny Angel telling me that you must remember that your legs weigh a ton each. Everything is painful, dragging your legs around. If you haven't got any legs, you've still got them. And you're conscious of them all the time. And when you appreciate that you cannot move this enormous weight below you, you understand the part.
Well, I think we ought to see a clip now. It's a particularly telling scene. It's, in fact, after you've had your aeroplane crash as Douglas Bader, and you don't, in fact, yet know that you've lost both legs.
At the age of 21, he was, 21.
You come and see me.
Yes, isn't it? Matter of fact, I've come to say goodbye.
What?
I've been posted to the Middle East.
Oh. Lucky devil. I wish I was going with you.
Oh. Giving you some trouble.
Oh, it's the left one. It hurts like hell.
It's bound to hurt at first, I expect.
Well, I wish they'd cut it off like they did the right one. That doesn't hurt at all.
Would you really like them to cut it off?
I don't give a damn what they do as long as they stop it hurting.
Matter of fact, Douglas, they have taken it off.
Why does it hurt so much then?
sometime.
Yes, I suppose so. Thanks for telling me, John.
Now, that's a very moving scene, but there's a story, isn't there?
There's a story about that scene. Just before that scene took place, the tea trolley, the studio tea trolley came round. Now, on the tea trolley, there were always 12 pieces of bread and dripping. Only 12, never less, never more. Now, 12 people wanted bread and dripping. More than 12 people wanted bread and dripping, including me. But you had to get in fast before everybody else grabbed it. So just before the scene started, I said to my stand-in, Jack Mandeville, get me a piece of bread and dripping. So we played the scene, and I really rose to the occasion, and I had more crying, and I was crying myself. You couldn't hear a pin drop in the studio. And immediately, Lewis Gilbert, who directed the film, said, cut. And they were going, oh, I said, Jack, did you get my piece of bread and dripping?
Moore gave another comedy masterclass in his next hit, The Admirable Crichton. The film first came about thanks to the involvement of the legendary producer Alexander Korda, of whom Moore was a huge admirer.
I loved him, you see. I believe that this is a magic business, and you've got to have magic personalities running it. Big-hearted, extravagant spendthrifts. I don't like to see our industry run on a shoestring. I don't think it'll ever work. I'd rather see it go down. Now, Korda came into my life with big cigars and a marvelous Hungarian personality, and he said, come in, Kenny, sit down, have a cigar, and he'd offer you one a foot long, you know, not a whiff, you know? Yeah. And immediately you felt important. I loved him. He's a big, warm-hearted, marvelous showman. I'm sure he was I wouldn't trust him at the end of the garden path. That didn't matter, you know. I didn't want to. So he made me feel like a star. That's what he did.
And it was his idea, wasn't it, that you should play in The Admirable Crichton?
Well, this is a very sad little story. He always wanted me to do The Admirable Crichton because it was his favourite subject, I think largely because he owned the rights. And, you know, he wanted to use up the rights. Anyway, and he wanted Lewis Gilbert, who directed me in Reach for the Sky, he wanted us to do it together. And we resisted it. We said, oh, you can't possibly make a film about The Admirable Crichton because Barry's book is really archaic when you read it today. I mean, it really is, you know, it's awful by modern standards. I mean, but a marvelous story. So we said, no. And then we were running through a scene in the dubbing theatre of Reach for the Sky when we were completing the picture. And suddenly, Lewis turned to me and I knew what he was going to say. He was going to say, let's ring up the old boy and tell him we'll do The Admirable Crichton. Obviously, we've got a winner here. We picked up the telephone in the dubbing room. We rang through to his house in Millionaires Row, Kensington Palace Gardens. And we said, may we speak to Sir Alec, please? We've got some good news for him. And his housekeeper or secretary said, I regret to tell you that Sir Alec's died earlier this morning. And it was like fate. It was such a blow to us. We put the phone down and we both looked at each other. And we knew right there and then that we were going to make The Admirable Crichton for Alex. And we made it.
You say it was archaic, but in fact it was, to some extent, just another image of the times, the part of the perfect butler who, after Lord Lame's family were marooned on the desert island, became their natural leaders. So traditional master and man relationships were reversed.
Crichton? What sort of a man are you?
As sort of a man?
Are you ambitious?
Ambitious for what?
To better yourself.
My lady, I am the son of a butler and a lady's maid, the happiest of all combinations. To me, the most beautiful thing in the world is the haughty, aristocratic English home with everyone kept in his place.
That's not how my father would have it.
Indeed, he would not, my lady. He would have equality for all. But what good would that do? Any satisfaction I might derive from being your equal would be ruined by the footman being equal to me.
Yes, I see. Wouldn't work, would it?
In no circumstances, my lady. In no circumstances whatever.
No. Well, thank you, Crichton.
Thank you, my lady.
I thought the dialogue, the film script was rather trite and poor. And the critics thought so too, and we didn't get a very good press. On the other hand, it was a great commercial success with the public because the story was so strong.
Moore knew a good story, and he knew how to tell one too, and that was a huge part of his popular appeal. Here he is again on Parkinson, putting the audience and his host into a state of hysterics.
I remember how I disgraced myself one night. We had a green room there where you could buy beer at twopence for half a pint in those days, 1935, 6, 7. And we got paid on Friday nights. On Monday we were broke, we were skint, of course. And all our money went into the green room on beer. And one night I was playing in some melodrama, which I had to sit on a garden bench and wait for my lover, my girlfriend, to come on and greet me home from the war with a wounded leg, you know, one of those things. So I was in the green room drinking beer when I should have been on the stage. So all the bar bells were pressed, and where's more? Where's more? For God's sake, more's on, it's on. So I rushed up, I down my pint, rushed up the stairs. Now, as all beer drinkers know, when you're standing still drinking beer at the bar, you're quite all right. I mean, you don't feel too bad, you know. But when you start to move, the waterworks start to rumbling around. So as I ran up the stairs to go on, I felt, my God, I got to spend a penny. I got to have a pee. It was too late. So I grabbed my walking stick and I went. I was staggering on the stage with a terrible limp, you know, all this sort of thing. Business went on, and I sat down on the garden bench and waited for my lover to come in. And I thought, my God, I'm doing it. And it was my gammy leg too. So I thought, well, that's got to be. I can't bend it because that'll keep the water in if I bend it. But it's gammy, I can't. So it was a lovely warm feeling. Unfortunately, the stage cloth was very dirty and dusty. So as it came out of the bottom of my legs, it looked rather like something like the Nile Delta.
I love mad moments like that, don't you, on stage? Was that the worst?
Well, I've never drunk before a show after a game.
You haven't?
It taught me a vivid lesson. No. Before the show, nothing at all, no alcohol.
Yeah. I mentioned in my introduction there that you've come through that period of fame and to become something of an institution, actually, in British entertainment. Does that have its drawbacks? Disadvantages?
Yes. Being an institution?
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you the sort of drawbacks it has. In the Chelsea area, there are one or two gentlemen's lavatories, like, we are talking lavatories tonight, aren't we? Anyway, there's one I use quite a bit every now and again when I pop in to do something or other. And I went in one morning, minding my own business, just spending a penny. There was nobody else in there at all except the little doorman reading the Times, the little attendant. And suddenly, when I was standing up against the china piece, I felt a tap on the shoulder. And I thought, oh my God, this is not the time to be tapped on the shoulder, is it? I looked around, it's the attendant. He said, Mr. Moore. I said, yes. He said, I told my wife you used my urinal. I think when that happens, you become an institution.
Being one of Britain's biggest stars was quite enough for Moore. He was never tempted to try and emulate his success in America, despite several opportunities.
When I'd sort of topped the British polls for about 5 years running, for whatever that meant, I had a lot of offers from Hollywood, but I had no desire to go there. The particular type of film they were making in those days didn't attract me. It was a very glossy product. I had nothing for it. It needed, once again, the cigar-shaped men rather than the square-shaped men. The day of the anti-hero hadn't arrived, and the day of the only moderately good-looking one had barely arrived. So Hollywood had nothing for me. And I was done, let's face it, I had got my money up to something like £40,000 a picture in England. And that was a lot of money, you know, Michael. You know, it's a lot of money. I couldn't do much better in Hollywood, so what was the point? I love living in England. England is my home, so I stayed here.
You did make one film with Jane Mansfield and Ronnie Squire again, The Sheriff of Fractured Jaw.
Yes,
but that wasn't made in America.
No, that was made in Spain by a marvelous old Western director called Raoul Walsh, one-eyed, a real cowboy director.
It was a splendid idea. The Edwardian gunsmith who travels west to sell guns to cowboys.
You know, it's a funny thing, but after the first one or two, it doesn't feel so much like drinking a porcupine. Or does it?
keep drinking.
No, no, sir. I insist. It's my turn. There. Good heavens. Barman, another glass for my drinking friend here. I insist, sir. It's my turn to pay. You can't abuse the laws of hospitality. Here we are. Now then. Good luck. Cheers. Extraordinary. Well, when in Rome.
You dirty, stinking polecat, reach!
Johnny!
I heard somewhere that you ad-libbed about 15% of the dialogue of that film. Was that true?
Well, I'd say a bit more. You see, Raoul Walsh, bless his heart, was this old one-eyed horse thief, as we used to call him, didn't believe in dialogue. Actors who spoke lines were all sissies. I mean, he didn't want dialogue just held up the picture. He wanted the horses and pistol fights and bar drinking scenes, and he didn't want to bother with dialogue.
You ad-lib quite a lot of comedy, though, don't you, in films? Generally.
Not as much as you think. You see, the art of contemporary acting, they always say, Ronnie Squire, going back to that dear man again, used to say that you get no cups for comedy. And it's very true. But on the other hand, realistic acting isn't as easy as it looks. To be natural is perhaps the most difficult thing. After all, Shakespeare said it, didn't he? Hold up a mirror to nature, hold a mirror up to nature.
And the tragedies survive the generations, whereas the comedy is of our time.
Exactly. But the point is that when you say ad-lib, when you make a thing look easy in the theatre, or on the films, or on television, it is the contemporary actor's ultimate object, his ultimate aim. If he's done that, he's succeeded.
Did you feel at any time that you were getting too much typecast in the cinema?
Of course. In films particularly, we're going back to the old argument about, why? Because they don't want to change your image, your personality, but I was.
And your own assets as a person. What are your main assets?
As an actor or as a person of our age?
As an actor, but in your person too, of course.
I think as an actor, my main asset is that, first of all, I've got a voice that people can hear, which is rather important nowadays, believe it or not. Secondly, that I have confidence through experience. Thirdly, that I'm a very emotional person, very, very emotional, who still believes in magic, which I think is essential in the theatre. And again, I am an extrovert, which I think is necessary. I don't believe in introvert actors. I can deal with situations as they arise, and I have this gift, I suppose, I can only call it a gift, because I was never conscious of it arriving, of comedy timing, which is really the basis of all acting, because all lines have to be timed. I suppose those are my assets, my liabilities. We won't go into those.
I can't imagine the time ever coming when we shall say, I wonder what happened to Kenneth More.
Well, you put it very nicely. And now it's all over and you've stripped me bare, as it were, Michael. I wonder what the verdict of my own profession will be. I would like to hazard a guess. Same actor, different clothes.
After several years struggling with Parkinson's disease, Kenneth More died in 1982, aged 67. That jokey self-assessment we just heard from him there, same actor, different clothes, was typical of the man. He may have won a Bafta, earned a CBE, and he even had a theatre named in his honour. But Kenneth More's most prized possession was his sense of humour, and that's what made him so popular.
Well, there's really only one film to show, isn't there? Stay with us for Reach for the Sky, next on BBC Two.